All right, hello and welcome to another segment of Math Tutoring Live, step by step. Hey, math is easy step by step. So let's go ahead and take a look, excuse me, adding and subtracting fraction rules. These are some rules. I'll go over some examples. And I will also have some links for some handouts that have problems with answers for you to practice. So here we are. Rule number 1, you must have the same denominator. That's the bottom number before you can add or subtract. Once you add, you're only adding the numerator. That's the top number only. Or if you're subtracting, you're only going to subtract the numerator. That's the top number of your fraction. Why? Well, because the denominator will always stay the same. Rule number 2, if the denominators are not the same, then you must find the least common multiple, or LCM, to find the least common denominator. Least common multiple, that's the smallest number that will multiply to the same number that we call the least common denominator. Let's go ahead and take a look at that here. So here's an example for you. I have adding example. I will go over a subtraction example in a moment. So as you can see, for this problem number 1, we have 1/2 plus 2/5. Step 1 is to find the least common multiple. Because these two numbers on the bottom of the fraction are not the same, we need to find a number that multiplies, that both of these numbers share. So we're going to multiply times 1, times 2, times 3, as many times as we need to find that number that they both share. For example, I'm going to set up 2 and 5. Okay, I'm going to set up 2 and 5 on the top of my T-chart. I've seen these charts also go horizontal. That means left to right instead of vertical. I like to do mine vertically. So I'm going to put the two numbers that are in the denominator, the 2 and the 5. And what I'm going to do is multiply each of those numbers, 2 and 5, all the way down to 10 if I have to. 20, 30, 40, 50 if I have to find the number that they both share, the product that they both share. Remember, product's the answer to a multiplication problem. So here we've got 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, and then 2 times 5 is 10. Okay. If you keep going down, 2 times 6 is 12, times 7 is 14, 2 times 8 is 16, 2 times 9 is 18, and then down here you can see how 2 times 10 is 20. Then I'll find all of the multiples of 5. 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, 5 times 4 is 20, 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 6 is 30, times 7 is 35, times 8 is 40, times 9 is 45, times 10 is 50. Now you can see 2 and 5, they both share 20, would be the common number that they both, 2 and 5, share. Or this could be our common denominator, right? We'd multiply 2, the fraction 1/2 top and bottom times 10 to get 20. And then we'd multiply 5 times the 4 to get 20. If you chose this method, you would have to reduce your final answer because you didn't choose the least of the common denominators. So I'm going to choose to have the common denominator to be 10, right? Because both 2 and 5 share the product of 10. What do I have to multiply 2 times to get 10? 2 times 5 is 10. So what I'm going to do is multiply my fraction, both the bottom. What you do to the bottom, you got to do to the top. I'm going to multiply both times 5. And then 5 times 2 would get me 10. So I'll multiply both bottom and top of that fraction by 2 in order to get 10 in the denominator. Remember, what you do to the bottom, you're going to have to do to the top. So That's what you're seeing here is step number 2. You want to multiply both top and bottom by the least common multiple, right? Remember, 2 times 5 gives me 10. Both of these fractions are going to have a common denominator of 10 because that's the product, the smallest product, the smallest answer to a multiplication problem that both 2 and 5 have. They share that 10 value. So what you do to the bottom, you got to do the top. 2 times 5 is 10. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 5 times 2. Remember, we multiply 5 times the 2 in order to get the 10. So 5 times 2 is 10. What I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. Now you will be able to see how we have 5 tenths plus 4 tenths. Now the denominator or the bottom number is the same. And you don't have to worry about adding the bottom number because this bottom number will stay the same in your answer. What we're going to add or subtract, if we're working on a subtraction problem, is the numerator, the top part of that fraction. Hey, what's 5 plus 4? 5 plus 4 is 9. Our final answer is 9 tenths. Of course, step 3 was to add the top numbers only. And the step 4 was to simplify or reduce. Since the number on top 9 is an odd number and the number on bottom 10 is an even number, this fraction will not be reduced unless you want to convert this fraction into a decimal answer. So that is adding. And guess what? Subtracting is no different. Okay, subtracting is no different. Let's look at an example problem for subtraction. Here we are, subtracting fractions example. So you can see here we have 2 over 3, or 2/3, minus 1 over 12. 1 over 12. So step 1, we need to find that least common multiple. That would be the number that we multiply times 3, and that would be the number we multiply times 12 to get that common denominator or that common product. So I'm going to set up my T-chart. I put both 3 and 12. These are the denominator values at the top. And I'm going to multiply each of these times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, 5, 6, all the way down to 10 if I have to, or all the way down to 20 or 50 if you really have to do that. It's a skill you have to practice. The better you get at multiplying, the better you're going to get at dividing. So it's a skill you must practice. Okay, so 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, we keep going. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 9 is 27. And 3 times 10 is 30. Now let's do the same thing with 12. 12 times 1 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 3 is 26, times 4 is 48, and on and on and on you go. So you can see here both 3 and 12 have a common factor, a common product of 24. And they also have the same common product of 12. Our goal is to find the least common multiple. So 12 times 1, 3 times 4, that gives us the least common denominator. We don't want to have to reduce our fraction. If you chose 24, that means you multiplied 12 times the top and bottom of the fraction with 12 in the denominator. You would get 24 in the denominator. You multiply 3 times 8, top and bottom of the fraction. You get a denominator of 24. You can do that, absolutely. But be prepared. You must reduce your fraction. So I'm going to choose the least common product between the two. I'm going to choose 12. That means I'll multiply top and bottom of the fraction with the denominator of 12 times 1. And I'll multiply that 3 and the 2 by 4 in order to get 12 as the common denominator for both of these fractions. So let's go ahead and take a look at that step 2. Multiply both top and bottom by the least common multiple. We see here, that's exactly what we're doing. I'm taking 3, because 3 times 4 is 12. I'm going to multiply both the bottom and the top of that fraction times 4. Minus 1 over 12 in order to get a common denominator of 12, I would multiply both top and bottom of that fraction times 1, right? Because 12 times 1 is 12. 3 times 4 is 12. Now, we'd have a common denominator. Now, once there's a common denominator, what you need to do for step 3 is to subtract the top numbers only. That would be 8 minus 1, because that bottom number will stay the same in our answer. So 8 minus 1 is 7. And since the top number is odd, the bottom number is even, this fraction will not reduce. So here are some practice problem links I will provide in this attached in this video. This first one is fraction multiplicative. Fraction manipulative. I'm glad I don't teach English. I'd be in trouble. So let me just explain how you can practice these problems on these handouts, and of course the answers will be on the backside. So here we go. We have 7 over 12, and then this rectangle will be left blank. So 7 plus blank over 12 would give you the whole wheel, right? So the whole wheel is, if you count up all these spokes, there are 12 of them. 12 will be highlighted and colored in at the end, giving you 12 over 12, or 1 whole. So this is kind of practicing what fraction you're going to put in order to add with another fraction to get the whole. So we take a look here at number 1, 3 over 8 plus, and in any word problem means to add. So 3/8 plus blank over blank would give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over 8, right? So 8 over 8 is 1 whole. 3 over 8 is highlighted here. It's kind of hard to see. But 3 over 8 plus 1 over 8 gives us a whole. So 3 over 8 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 8. 3 over 8 plus 5 over 8 would give us a whole. So 5 over 8. Hey, I'm not sure. Did I do that right? Well, check them answers. Those answers are on the back side. And as you can see here, 5 over 8 and 3 over 8 would give you 1 whole. So that's kind of what we're working on here. The next handout is very similar, except they're using square units, right? They're showing you that 11 over 14 is highlighted. 11 over 14 plus blank gives you what? Plus blank gives you 14 over 14. Well, 11 plus 3. So 11 14ths and 3 over 14ths gives you that whole. So this is just kind of having you practice whole numbers. Remember, 20 out of 20 is 1 whole. So 1 over 1 is a whole, 2 over 2 is a whole, 3 over 3 is a whole, 4 over 4 is a whole, 20 over 20 is 1 whole. Here are some adding fractions. I kind of did a couple problems here for you. Of course, look at number 1. The bottom denominator are the same. So we can just add the top and keep the denominator the same. 1 plus 1 is 2. Here I have 1/2 plus 1/3. The bottom numbers are not the same. So I'll set up my t-chart. I'll multiply all the way down to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 until I find the product that both of those numbers share. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. They both share 6. That is the least common denominator for this problem. So I'd need to multiply 2 times 3 to get 6. Both the top and bottom of this fraction, what you do to the bottom, got to do to the top. And 3 times 2 is 6. So for this fraction, I'll multiply 2 times 3. What you do to the bottom, you got to do to the top. That simplifies to 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6. Hey, the bottom numbers are the same, common denominators. We keep that in our answer, and 3 plus 2 is 5. If you're not sure you're doing them right, of course, what do you got on the back side? You have your answers. Yes, go ahead and check your answers. And you can see here, 2 over 14, even number can both be divided by 2 to simplify your fraction to 1 over 7. 1 over 7. Okay, here's some subtraction handouts. Of course, this will be very much the same thing. The hardest part, of course, is finding that common denominator. So good luck. Practice this. This is the same thing as adding rules. Instead of adding, you're just subtracting. Check those answers. Remember to reduce your final answer. Hey, I hope this segment helps you in understanding how to add and subtract fractions.